And I'd like to ask all of the panellists this to respond. In no particular order, just pop your hand up and I'll come to you. My very first question is, what do artists with a disability offer the arts? If we don't have a volunteer to go first, I'll pick one. Emma, would you like to go first?
I thought you might do that to me. Oh.
We'll come to you, Ross. Yeah.
Well, I mean, firstly, I'd like to make the point that, artists with disability offer exactly what artists without disability offer, in the sense that they offer high quality, excellent art. And, obviously that's the first point to make. But I think what's additional to that is that, people with disability who make art offer, that unique experience of disability. They also, are often very cognizant of, the extra access aspects that can be built into work. And I think also, very importantly, they bring new audiences to the work who might not necessarily normally come. So I think, in a nutshell, for me, that's what it's about. And I think when you consider, a lot of people ask me this question, what's the difference? Why do you, you'd be amazed how many people ask me, why do we need to do anything different for artists with disability? I find it gobsmacking. But really, the point is that, 1 in 5 Australians are people with disability. And so those stories, whilst we've heard some wonderful examples of how they are being told, and that there are some fantastic high quality artists, some of whom we've seen tonight, there are many, 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 many more artists with disability in our country who are just not getting that opportunity. So I think we're missing an opportunity. That's my...
Jade, Footscray Community Arts Centre is not a disability arts organisation, but you do some fantastic work in the area. What do you think that artists with a disability offer the arts?
Well, I guess without artists there is no art. So for me, I sort of share the same sentiment that with disability or without, we need artists to do what we do broadly in this sector. But specifically, what I see from artists with disability is a deep sense of passion, absolute commitment to the practice, excellence, generosity. I also generally see a form of provocation come into the work, which I really appreciate, and a unique world perspective. Yeah.
Ross?
Can I just ask everyone to speak into the microphones, please?
Sure. Just
If I can find it.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Ross, you don't need to speak into the microphone, but but thank you for your politeness, Penny. We like good manners on the panel. Ross.
Can the deaf people in the audience see me? I'm not sure where they're located. Okay, for deaf people, we certainly have a lot to offer the arts. One thing, for example, is our life skills, growing up as deaf individuals, our visual acuity, being aware of what's around us, having creative minds, being able to envisage and express ideas. Deaf people have a different view or perception of the world as deaf individuals compared to you all as people with hearing, so we see the world differently. Deaf people have a lot to give and express. It's an innate ability, a feeling that is underlying and it's held there for a long period of time, and in some way we want to get it out and express that. One way of doing that is through the arts. Thinking of an example, Auslan, as you can see, is a very unique language. It's a language in its own right. Deaf people have their own culture, their own language, and the visual part or component is certainly a critical one. Butterfly Hands, the poem, if some of people have actually seen that performance, the Butterfly Hands performance that was done at Federation Square, originally that concept came out of the deaf community by individuals who were developing poems within a group of deaf artists, along with Jodie Mundy, who hears today, and looking at the ideas in terms of creating expressive poetry. So looking at the use of Auslan, and Jodie was able to translate that into English, and it meant that we had a universal language with people who were there who could understand what was going on through the interpretation. The poem was choreographed in dance, and we had people doing rap dance and movement, and it was expressed in Auslan in sign language. So it's one classic example where we had the butterfly poem that worked effectively, and that was an initiative by deaf people from the deaf community, and they certainly do have a lot to offer the arts.
Penny, we'll just keep progressing down the panel. As the Director of Arts Victoria, what's your take on this question? What do you see artists with disabilities offering the arts?
Well, I won't repeat things that people before me have said, but clearly Emma's overview gave us a terrific insight into the overall world that we're talking about. I think it's quite interesting, actually, if I think about programming and performances around in Victoria, that actually some of the most interesting work comes from artists with a disability and or companies that have people with a disability in them. And it's interesting that I think, there's more of a spirit of adventurousness sometimes, or a propensity to take risks that perhaps we don't see sometimes in some of our, mainstream theatre companies. It's interesting that Cameron Woodhead wrote an article back in 2011 on this very subject, and if I may just quote him, and he was talking about the Melbourne Festival of that year, which had shows in by both Back to Back and Raucous, and he says, they share a sense of adventurousness, a command of presence, and a frisson of unpredictability, which we like, a willingness to embrace risk, and crucially, the critical rigour to make that risk pay off in aesthetic terms. And so, I completely agree with that, and I couldn't have written it any better than Cameron did. And I suppose, the other thing is worth saying is that for broader audiences, the work of artists and arts workers in the sector who have a disability does provide the broader public with some really important insights into the world of disability that are very accessible insights as well. And that's very important when we think about what's happening with the NDIS and other policy initiatives that are very important at the moment.
Catherine, what do you think?
I'm not going to tell you, Stella.
You're not going to tell me?
No.
Will you tell everyone else?
No.
What?
No.
Excellent. All right.
People have to go find out for themselves. I think.
Right. Actually,
So my answer is open your doors, build your ramps, fund your access, and you'll find out exactly what people have got to offer. I can't tell you. I could sell myself, but I'm not here to sell my own work. So I want everyone to have the opportunity to sell themselves as an artist. So, I can't tell you. My challenge is for the 300 people in the room to go find out. Yeah.
that's an excellent answer. Tony.
Lucky last.
Yeah.
It's great to be here, and there's so many people here. I'm only 9 weeks into the job, and I've got the wonderful task of going around the country, and obviously I know a lot of people in the arts community, but a lot of people I don't know, so a forum like this tonight is great. But something that I'm obviously passionate about, and certainly the work of the Australia Council, is freedom of artistic expression from all parts of the community. And I think people who identify with having disability is a big and important part of our community, and I've been so impressed over the years of seeing it's picking up on a number of points that people have said, just the courage, the innovation in the practice and the performance and the works, and I think that the messages that they convey, and I think that we can all learn from. So.
I think someone made an interesting point before about, Penny, I think it might have been you, about artists with disabilities being willing to take risks I wonder if that's because we traditionally haven't had much to lose.
We only get one crack, we may as well take a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And Emma, I'm going to come back to you because you're the CEO of Arts Access Australia, so you have a good national view. You know, we've just talked about what artists with disabilities bring to our cultural life. Where are our celebrated artists with disabilities?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, isn't it? And I think, you know, we can all think of maybe one or two examples of, you know, Australian artists with disability who are, you know, well known.
Can you tell me?
Well, Gurumul being
Okay.
one, but there really are very few examples of celebrated artists with disability. I mean, even if you look at arts companies, disability arts companies, I mean, you know, apart from Back to Back and Raucous, there really are not many that really are well known. And I often think about this and I wonder, you know, why? And I think part of it is, you know, the fact that obviously, you know, money is an issue, and of course I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but I think also there needs to be a really significant cultural shift, and it is about moving beyond tolerance to starting to really bring the whole sector. It's not just about the arts and disability sector, it's about funding bodies, the broader mainstream quote-unquote sector on board to celebrate the contribution of artists with disability, rather than thinking of us, and I say us because I am a practising artist, as something nice, as an additional feature that we might like to add on. And I'm not being bitter and twisted when I say that. I actually have, you know, personal experience of that, and I've also seen evidence of that happening around the country where people think, oh, isn't that lovely? We've got that person with disability performing, and it feels like an exercise in tokenism. We want that to stop, and we need to have that celebration of excellence. There's plenty of it, as I said before, there's plenty of it. It's just that it's not well known to the community. So it's the responsibility of every single person who works in the arts and cultural sector to make that happen, I believe.
I would agree. So do you think that the current system is delivering equitable outcomes?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, I've already alluded to that. I actually think that it's a similar situation to what we have across the disability sector generally. We've heard a lot about, with the launch of the NDIS, the fact that we're going to end the postcode lottery and we're going to end the system where it's, you know, inequitable, fragmented, underfunded, etc. And I think actually what we see in the arts is a microcosm of that situation. And I think what concerns me most about that is that the arts is about, as the Minister said before, you know, it acts as a catalyst for change in our society. So at a time when we're implementing a massive, once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime reform around disability, we still have an arts and disability sector which is lagging behind. Or not an arts and disability sector so much, but we have a whole lot of artists with disability who are lagging behind because they're not getting the opportunities to demonstrate their talent and ability and excellence. So it concerns me that we've got a dichotomy around that. It does concern me a lot.